The Grand Canyon is one of the most amazing places on Earth, but did you know it is positively overflowing with secrets? From bizarre caves full of mummies to a deadly river and so much more, this natural wonder is also a treasure trove of the unknown. So let's try to unravel some of the most fascinating mysteries that make the Grand Canyon so much more than just a pretty view. Cancads' Secret Cave. Get ready for the biggest cover-up in Grand Canyon history. There is a cave filled with hundreds of Egyptian artifacts, including mummies and hieroglyphics that could rewrite history. Too bad no one can find it. In April 1909, the Arizona Gazette published an explosive front-page story about a discovery so wild it's hard to believe. The headline screamed, "Mysteries of immense rich cavern being brought to light." According to the article, two scientists from the Smithsonian Institute, Professor Jordan and Professor Cancad, had found something incredible in the Marble Canyon region of the Grand Canyon. These tunnels dated back to the era of Pharaoh Ramses around 1250 BC. Somehow, the ancient Egyptians had arrived in the Americas and set up a colony in a cave. This meant the Grand Canyon was not settled by the ancient Puebloans, but the ancient Egyptians. Of course, there are some problems with this article. The news broke and went as viral as it could for 1909, but then nothing. Poof, the story disappeared. No pictures, no follow-up articles, no recovered artifacts, no official confirmation. It has everyone today still wondering, did researchers really find proof of a lost city in the Grand Canyon? According to the story, Cancad found the cave when he saw strange stains on a cliffside and thought, why not climb 2,000 feet up this deadly rock face for a closer look? There is some confusion as to where Professor Jordan fits in, but let's just go with it. Cancad tends to get all the credit. Once he reached the mouth of the cave, he found a hand-carved tunnel leading hundreds of feet into the rock. Venturing further, he stumbled into what can only be described as Indiana Jones's dream house. There were mummies stored on individual shelves, a crypt full of relics, curious weapons made of copper, gold cups and pottery, and mysterious hieroglyphs that didn't match any known Native American script. Then he stumbled into a room that supposedly reeked of a deadly, snaky smell, whatever the heck that means. Either a supernatural curse or someone left their lunch out for 3,000 years. According to the Phoenix Gazette, the Smithsonian Institution swooped in like the Men in Black, sending an army of archaeologists to investigate Cancad's claim. The explorers reportedly mapped out passageways leading to massive rooms, one 700 feet long, and storerooms stacked with seeds. And then, once again, nothing. Today, if you ask the Smithsonian about Cancad's cave, they will confirm that none of this ever happened. There was no Cancad, there was no expedition, and nothing even remotely of the sort was found in the Grand Canyon. One representative stated, no Egyptian artifacts of any kind have ever been found in North or South America. So, was the entire story an elaborate hoax, or is there something strange going on? Here's where things get weirder. Many landmarks in the Grand Canyon have oddly Egyptian-sounding names. For example, the Tower of Ra, Horus Temple, Osiris Temple, and Isis Temple. To this very day, people believe that something strange happened in 1909 and the Smithsonian tried to cover it up. Why? Maybe they were afraid to rewrite history. Let me know what you think. Strange cover-up or a hoax? What really lies in the Forbidden Zone? When you think of the Grand Canyon, you might get sweaty palms imagining all of those high cliffs. But have you ever heard of the Forbidden Zone? Sounds mysterious, right? Like maybe there's a hidden UFO base or a lost civilization of lizard people. Well, before you grab your climbing gear and your treasure map, let me break down what this so-called Forbidden Zone really is and what it's hiding. First off, let me clear something up. The Forbidden Zone isn't an official term used by the National Park Service. It's more of a pop culture nickname, fueled by a mix of conspiracy theories, legends, and safety rules. Forbidden Zone refers to areas in the Grand Canyon that are off limits to the public for reasons ranging from environmental protection to tribal land rights. Remember, the Grand Canyon is huge and home to native people. And then there are the areas where death lurks around every corner. I'll mention a few official places and then dive into the more mythical, forbidden areas of the canyon. At the confluence of the Colorado and Little Colorado rivers lies a sacred site that has been used by the Hopi people for centuries. It's a mine filled with salt. Since it's deeply tied to Hopi spiritual traditions, access is strictly prohibited to the Hopi salt mines. If you're really into plants, you might have heard of century milk vetch. It sounds made up, but I promise it isn't. This ultra-rare plant only grows in a small section of the Grand Canyon and was getting trampled by clueless visitors until the area was fenced off in 1990. Now, the plant gets to thrive, and tourists are spared from the embarrassment of a ranger yelling, "Hey, get off the milk vetch!" Next up is a bridge. Crossing a bridge made of pine trees centuries ago by the ancestral Puebloans seems like a dream come true, right? But it's actually a nightmare waiting to happen. The famous Anasazi Bridge is not stable for modern-day pedestrians, and it is 300 feet above the Colorado River. One slip is certain death, which is why it's closed to the public. Do not attempt to cross. If horror movies have taught us anything, it's that abandoned mines are not where you want to be. The Grand Canyon has plenty of them, and while they might seem tempting to explore, they are closed off for good reasons. Some, like the Orphan Mine, are full of uranium. Wouldn't radiation poisoning just be the greatest vacation souvenir? Others, like the Bass Asbestos Mine, contain, you guessed it, asbestos. I'm not sure which is worse, slight radiation poisoning or lungs full of asbestos. These are all official reasons for the Grand Canyon's Forbidden Zone. Now, for some unofficial reasons, remember that cave I told you about that Cancads found in 1909? It's thought that his cave is hiding inside the Forbidden Zone and that the government knows all about it. They are purposely keeping it under wraps so that the mainstream version of history doesn't have to change. There's also a rumor that a city of reptilians is under the Grand Canyon and that the US government is doing everything in its power to protect them from the public. Safely in the Forbidden Zone, the reptilians can continue their diabolical plots. What do you think is in the Forbidden Zone? Caves and more caves. The Grand Canyon is a land of breathtaking views, terrifyingly steep drop-offs, and tourists dangling over the edge like they're auditioning for the Darwin Awards. But while everyone is busy gawking at the canyon's vast, rugged beauty, very few people know what is hiding inside those limestone cliffs. What if I told you the Grand Canyon isn't just a colossal rift in the earth, but a giant hidden storage unit for the Ice Age? Forget the breathtaking views for a second. We're talking about hundreds of caves, more than any other national park, crammed with ancient mysteries, extinct creatures, and, well, a mountain of prehistoric animal dung. Bet you didn't see that coming. Seriously, how many national parks can boast a 40,000-year-old dung pile? While it might not sound great, this is actually incredible for scientists. Let's dive in, shall we? Think of these caves as nature's attic, but instead of dusty photo albums, they are filled with Ice Age relics. Paleontologist Jim Mead tells us the Grand Canyon dwarfs Carlsbad Caverns in cave count. Hundreds, not just 119. Step it up, Carlsbad. For tens of thousands of years, these caves of all shapes and sizes have been prime real estate for all sorts of critters. Bats, wood rats, prehistoric mountain goats, and the legendary Shasta ground sloth, a 500-pound beast the size of a refrigerator. Some caves are barely big enough to crawl into, while others are so spacious you could throw a Lovers and Friends festival. Now let's talk about Rampart Cave. In the 1930s, scientists stumbled upon tons of dung balls. Not just any dung, mind you, the droppings of the long-extinct Shasta ground sloth. Mead described it as a barnyard with a surprisingly mild smell, which, let's be honest, is a win compared to a festival porta potty. Radiocarbon dating revealed some of these ancient droppings were over 40,000 years old. That's older than your grandma's fruitcake, that's for sure. Sadly, this iconic cave, once featured on Arizona highway maps, was ravaged by a fire in 1976, courtesy of some vandals. This is why we can't have nice things. A moment of silence for the lost information the droppings could have given us. But fear not! Hundreds of caves remain, offering a lifetime of discoveries. Some are really hard to get to, You need rock climbing skills and a serious life insurance policy to explore. Researchers have even used helicopters to access the most remote sites. One cave, discovered in 2008, stretches an incredible 40 miles, making it one of the longest caves in the world. Inside, they found mummified bats, looking like they're just taking a really long nap. They've also unearthed mummified condors, their skin still intact. And if that weren't enough, rumors persist of a lost city hidden deep within these caverns, a tale from a century ago. More on that coming up. And now for a quick break, because I want to give a big thank you to Gerard Cormican for this super thanks. It really means a lot, and we wouldn't be here without you. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe to join the Origins Explained family. We'd love to have you. Evidence of humans from 12,000 years ago. Ever wonder what your a lot of great-grandparents were doing 12,000 years ago? Turns out, some of them were chilling in the Grand Canyon, making tiny animal voodoo dolls. Because what else are you supposed to be doing? The Grand Canyon is a prehistoric treasure chest. While most visitors are busy trying not to drop their phones into the abyss, archaeologists have been uncovering artifacts that prove people were living, hunting, and making surprisingly intricate arts and crafts here over 12,000 years ago. Long before tour buses, overpriced gift shops, and that one guy who insists on hiking in flip-flops, the Grand Canyon was home to ancient cultures who left behind some seriously cool stuff. And I'm not talking about ancient Egyptians here. I'm talking about the confirmed ancient people. Humor me for a second and let's pretend that you're a prehistoric hunter. You don't have a GPS, Gore-Tex boots, or a protein bar. What do you have? A razor-sharp spear tip that can take down a woolly mammoth. Archaeologists have found 2 ancient spear points in the Grand Canyon. One is from the Clovis culture. The other is from the Folsom culture. These were the prehistoric equivalent of high-tech weaponry. The Clovis point dates to between 9,200 and 8,900 BC. It was made from paleo-pink stone, probably crafted in the Chusca Mountains before somehow making its way to the Grand Canyon. Prehistoric road trip, maybe? The Folsom point dates to between 8,900 and 8,200 BC. It's a bit newer, but still sharp enough to make you rethink ever time traveling to the Ice Age. These points traveled a long way to get here, said archaeologist Ellen Brennan. But why? What obsession did both Clovis and Folsom cultures have with the Grand Canyon? Maybe some of the other findings can help. Archaeologists also uncovered twig figurines that were ancient good luck charms. 4,000 years ago, someone sat in the Grand Canyon carefully whittling tiny animal figurines out of sticks. Why? Archaeologists say it was probably to bring good luck for hunting. These palm-sized masterpieces, mostly deer and bighorn sheep, were found scattered throughout the canyon. Some even had little spears poking through them, as if their makers were really trying to manifest a successful hunting trip, like bighorn voodoo dolls. It's pretty cool knowing that ancient cultures thrived in the canyon 12,000 years ago. Even if the Egyptian city in Cancads Cave isn't real, there were still people in the Grand Canyon 10,000 years before the Roman Empire even started. The Clovis and Folsom cultures weren't the only ones. The basket maker people thrived from 550 to 825 AD and were exactly what they sound like, absolute pros at basket making. The ancestral Puebloans took over in 825 and stayed until 1250. They took pottery to the next level. Unlike the earlier basket maker ceramics, their pottery evolved to have intricate geometric patterns way ahead of their time. The Grand Canyon still has thousands of unexplored caves and countless more hidden artifacts waiting to be discovered. Who knows what we'll find next? The Grand Canyon Moon Style. If you've ever stood at the edge of the Grand Canyon and thought, how amazing it is that the crevice in the earth took millions of years to form, you're not alone. But I think the moon would like to have a word with you. It turns out Arizona doesn't have the monopoly on jaw-dropping canyons. Our very own moon has a couple that make the Grand Canyon look like a kiddie pool. And here's the kicker. They formed in about 10 minutes, compared to the Grand Canyon's millions of years. That's faster than it takes to get through airport security. I introduce you now to Wallace Schrodinger and Wallace Planck, the moon's answer to the Grand Canyon. Valles Schrödinger is a canyon that's a whopping 168 miles long and 1.7 miles deep. Valles Plank stretches 174 miles and plunges 2.2 miles. For comparison, Earth's Grand Canyon is about the same length, but only a third as deep at its lowest points. If the Grand Canyon were a skyscraper, Valles Plank would be 3 of those skyscrapers stacked on top of each other, reaching into the sky. So how did these lunar megagorges come to be? If you guessed erosion, let me remind you that the moon has no water, wind, or anything to do any eroding. Instead, these valleys were born in a cataclysmic game of cosmic billiards 3.81 billion years ago. A massive meteor belly flopped onto the moon's surface. The impact created the Schrödinger Impact Basin, a 200-mile wide crater, and sent debris flying up to 310 miles away. Dr. David Kring, a space geologist from the Lunar and Planetary Institute, explained how the meteor's impact created concentrated streams of rock flying through space like an intergalactic smoothie blender. When those rock streams crashed back down, they carved out long, deep canyons in an instant. Meanwhile, here on Earth, our canyons take millions of years to form, slowly carved by rivers like an elderly sculptor who refuses to rush a masterpiece. Why should you care about a massive lunar rock fight from billions of years ago? Well, it turns out this is great news for NASA's upcoming Artemis mission, which is aiming to land astronauts near the Schrödinger Basin in 2026. That's right around the corner. If the impact had evenly scattered debris everywhere, it could have made landing and collecting rock samples a nightmare. But since most of the debris landed outside the Artemis exploration zone, astronauts will have an easier time gathering ancient moon rocks instead of wading through space rubble. The Artemis team should be able to collect samples from before the Schrödinger impact, which could help scientists understand the violent early days of our solar system. Nothing says welcome to space quite like digging up billion-year-old rocks from an explosion so powerful it reshaped part of the moon in the time it takes to microwave a Hot Pocket. The next time you're admiring the Grand Canyon, just remember that somewhere up there, the moon has its own even more impressive canyons. And one day soon, humans could be exploring them on foot. The canyon's prehistoric graffiti. The Grand Canyon is covered with graffiti, but it's not what you think. The Grand Canyon is home to some of the most incredible prehistoric rock art in the United States. Finding rock art in the Grand Canyon is like trying to locate your sunglasses when they're on top of your head. It's there, but not exactly obvious. While some sites, like the pictographs on Bright Angel Trail, are easy to spot, others require a combination of expert knowledge, a good map, and a willingness to sweat profusely under the Arizona sun. If you're going to hunt for petroglyphs, don't forget your sunscreen and about 77 gallons of water. Many rock art sites are intentionally kept secret to prevent vandalism, looting, or clueless tourists who think scratching their initials next to a 4,000-year-old drawing is a great idea. The National Park Service is tight-lipped about exact locations, and hikers who have found them don't usually spill the beans. If they did, the next thing you know, we'd have influencers crawling all over the sacred archaeological sites. So it's probably for the best that most people don't know where they are. In case you might be wondering what the difference is between petroglyphs and pictographs, petroglyphs are carvings into the rock, while pictographs are painted images on the rock. One of the most famous rock art sites is Shaman's Gallery, located in Tuckup Canyon. This site features bizarre, multicolored figures, some with no arms, some with multiple heads, and a few that look like they might have been inspired by an alien encounter. I mean, they do kind of look like aliens, but they are probably gods from a lost prehistoric religion. What do you think they look like? The panel also includes depictions of sheep, deer, and sun-like motifs, suggesting it may have had spiritual or ceremonial significance. For those who prefer their rock art without an extreme wilderness adventure, Bright Angel Trail is your best bet. This popular trail features a pictograph panel depicting deer painted in deep red. They are best viewed with binoculars, unless you have superhuman eyesight. What's wild about these pictographs is that they could date anywhere from 2000 BC to 1950 AD. No one knows. They could be from a super ancient civilization or your grandfather. It's a little annoying for researchers who just can't seem to date the rock art, leaving speculation open for conspiracies. Don Christensen, a rock art expert, said that even the best photography can't do the images justice. If you really want to appreciate Esplanade polychrome rock art, you need to see it in person. Well, you heard him. Get going to the Grand Canyon. Stranded below the canyon. How would you feel if you booked a $1,000 a night underground hotel suite, expecting a cool adventure, only to accidentally star in your own survival movie? That's exactly what happened when 5 guests at the Grand Canyon Caverns found themselves trapped 21 stories below ground because the elevator decided to stop working. For over 24 hours, these unlucky adventurers, or lucky depending on how you look at it, were stuck in the Grand Canyon cave while officials tried everything short of calling MacGyver to fix the elevator. First, they hooked it up to an external generator. It didn't work. Eventually, the Coconino County Sheriff's Office had to break out a tripod and rope setup to manually hoist the trapped people 210 feet to the surface. The good news is that nobody was injured. The better news is that at least they were stuck in a cavern with a restaurant. Their 24 hours of underground imprisonment came with their own buffet, so they were pretty dang comfortable. They even had beds. That doesn't really sound so bad. Weren't they paying to do that anyway? Sheriff's Office spokesperson John Paxton admitted that in his 30 years on the job, he's never taken a call like this one before. Probably because most people don't pay top dollar to get trapped underground. But hey, they made it out safe and sound, and now they've got the ultimate vacation story to tell for the rest of their lives. And you could too. I'll tell you how in just a second, but first, be sure to subscribe to help support the channel. Luxury caving in the canyon. Welcome to the Cavern Suite, the most luxurious underground cave room you never knew you needed. Why stay in a regular hotel when you can descend 21 stories below the Earth's surface like a supervillain in his lair? This is the cavern where the 5 guests I just told you about got stuck. They were staying in the suite officially billed as the oldest, darkest, deepest, quietest, and largest suite room in the world. It is 200 feet below ground, so at least you won't hear your upstairs neighbors stomping around at 2 a.m. The history of these caverns is just as wild as the idea of turning them into a luxury suite and then shutting off the elevator. In 1927, a guy named Walter Peck was either really bad at walking or just exceptionally lucky. He tripped and fell into a mysterious hole and discovered an enormous underground cave system filled with sparkly rocks. Walter assumed the sparkly rocks were gold, so he bought the land. Only later did he find out that his gold was literally just sparkly rocks. Bad investment, Walter. Whoops. Instead of sulking over his poor life choices, Walter decided to charge people money to come look at his glorified rock collection. Pretty clever idea. Normally I have to pay people to come look at my rock collection. Just like that, the caverns became a tourist attraction. These days, the caverns boast an RV park, a restaurant, and even a frisbee golf course. In 2010, the owners decided to crank up the weirdness by turning a section of the caverns into a hotel suite. After 4 months of construction, they transformed a 220-foot by 400-foot cavern into a luxury suite, and business is still booming. The underground room is typically pre-booked about 200 nights a year, proving that people will do just about anything for a unique Airbnb listing. The suite itself has everything you could ever want. 2 queen beds, a couch that folds out into a king-size bed, and a kitchenette complete with a microwave, fridge, and Keurig. Even cave people need their caffeine. Come on. There's also electricity, hot and cold water, and a bathroom with a toilet that's good for about 7 to 8 flushes. If you need anything, an attendant is just a walkie-talkie call away, probably chilling in the fresh air above ground while you play troglodyte for the night. For entertainment, you get a record player, a DVD player, and a VHS player. If you're about to Google VHS, congratulations, you're young. The suite also provides movies, but in the cruelest prank of all time, they include The Cave in their cinematic selection, along with The Descent. Both movies are about people being eaten and tormented by monsters in underground caves, apparently. I haven't seen them. Sweet dreams, everyone. If you do choose to spend a few nights in the Cave of Horrors, don't expect to have your privacy. Tour groups stroll past throughout the day, so depending on your check-in time, you might wake up to a group of tourists pointing at you like you're an exhibit at the zoo. How do you like that? And if you're worried about critters, relax. There is no water in these caverns, so no bats, no bugs, and no creepy crawlies. Just the potential ghosts of long-dead explorers, workers, and possibly one very annoyed prehistoric sloth named Gertie. Gertie's fossilized remains were found in the cavern, along with claw marks on the wall where she apparently tried and failed to escape. Oops, this has taken a dark turn. On a more positive note, the suite doubles as a fallout shelter, so if your stay overlaps the apocalypse, you're golden. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the government stocked the cavern with supplies for 200 people, and the provisions were never removed. Would you spend the night in the Grand Canyon's deepest room? If the answer is yes, what movie are you watching? The Poisonous Death Trap. Imagine a bubbling, pumpkin-colored pool shimmering in the Arizona sun. Looks inviting, right? Wrong. This isn't a spa day, it's a death trap. This is Pumpkin Spring, and its beauty is a lethal lie. I have yet to mention in this whole video how big the Grand Canyon truly is. This geological masterpiece stretches 277 miles, which is about 71% of Arizona's entire width. That's like if Arizona had a giant scar from an epic bar fight with Mother Nature. While everyone's busy staring at the big, beautiful canyon, there is a hidden natural wonder nearby that is way weirder and way deadlier. This is Pumpkin Spring, the adorable-looking hot spring that will absolutely ruin your day if you so much as dip a toe in it. This place is the pumpkin spice latte of death. At first glance, Pumpkin Spring looks like something straight out of Yellowstone's hot spring collection. It's got the cute round shape, the rich orange hues, but instead of filling your soul with warmth and joy, this thing is brimming with toxic metals that could probably dissolve a spoon. Pumpkin Spring is filled with arsenic, copper, lead, and zinc. The arsenic levels alone are 87.5 times the EPA's safe drinking limit, which means this is not the kind of mineral bath that will make your skin glow. Unless you mean glow like a radioactive ghoul from the Fallout show. Unlike the Grand Canyon's billion-year-old rock formations, Pumpkin Spring is a baby in geological terms. It formed from dissolved calcium carbonate, iron, and sulfur, which built up into a natural pumpkin-shaped travertine mound over time. The truth is that scientists aren't entirely sure how it got so toxic. As if Pumpkin Spring didn't already sound like something out of a horror movie, there is also a mystery tied to it. In 2015, a 22-year-old river guide went missing near mile 213. Which is right by Pumpkin Spring. Despite a 6-day search by land and air, they were never found. I'm not saying the toxic pumpkin ate them, but you have to admit it's a little suspicious. The disappearance is still unsolved, but you can go to Pumpkin Spring anytime. Just know that you can't touch it, not even with your pinky toe. Mystery illness. A hiking expedition went very wrong in the Grand Canyon, leaving a group of adventurers extremely ill. Scientists have yet to figure out if it was the weather, something they all ate, or something much more sinister that's hidden beneath the surface. Malin Griffiths had big plans for her 40th birthday. She and some friends were to embark on a beautiful, challenging hike into the heart of Havasupai. What she got instead was a front row seat to what felt like a medieval plague outbreak. Griffiths said, "We had a lovely hike in, it was wonderful. Then we set up camp and everything was great." And that's where the good times ended. Soon after, Malin found herself throwing up. The sickness kept getting worse, and before long, she and a friend, who also got hit with the mysterious bug, had to trek several miles back to a village for help. Can you imagine trying to hike while feeling like your insides are staging a rebellion? 10 out of 10 would not recommend it. A local doctor checked their temperatures and hit the panic button. Griffiths had a fever of 104 degrees, while her friend had a fever of 105. That's not just a fever, that's medium rare, and about 1 degree away from roasting the human brain. The situation was so bad that they were admitted to the village clinic, but the clinic didn't have enough beds for every sick person. Other than Malin and her friend, there were over 150 sick people stranded in the canyon. The peaceful trails were looking more like a chaotic episode of Survivor. Griffiths had no choice but to be airlifted out. Maylin urged officials to shut things down until they figured out what was going on. She didn't want anyone else to hike into the canyon and experience the same gut-wrenching, mind-melting sickness. It was a fair thing to request. A surprise puke fest isn't exactly on most people's bucket list when they visit the Grand Canyon. Many other hikers reported the same bizarre illness at the same time. Madeline Melchiors, another unlucky visitor, had to use a mule to help carry her gear out. Meanwhile, Wendy Rose Gould took to social media to warn fellow adventurers, sharing that she spent 24 hours projectile vomiting and even found a vomit buddy near the bathrooms. There's no other bonding experience quite like synchronized puking in the middle of nowhere. So what was making everyone so sick? That's the question. Scientists, doctors, and the victims of the sickness are all asking the same thing. The Havasupai Tribe Tourism Office swears their water is safe, with recent tests showing no issues. But if it wasn't the water supply that got everyone so ill, what's to blame? Some of the hikers think they caught norovirus, a highly contagious stomach virus from hell. For reference, norovirus is the same bug that turns cruise ships into floating toilets. But if the norovirus isn't responsible, something else must be. Could it be radiation from something deep below the canyon? It could explain why a large group suddenly got sick at the exact same time. Maybe it wasn't radiation, but some other type of emitted energy. All I know is that if you're planning a Grand Canyon adventure anytime soon, maybe pack more than just trail mix and sunscreen. Bring some hand sanitizer, an exit strategy, and some Pepto-Bismol.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for extra content you might have missed. Uranium mining. The Grand Canyon is a vast place home to at least 11 Native American tribes. It's the most beloved of all the national parks in the United States, though that depends on who you ask. But still, the Grand Canyon is home to some serious uranium mining. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's reality. There are deep uranium deposits in the Grand Canyon, buried inside sandstone, mudstone, and siltstone. All throughout the Grand Canyon, uranium ore can be found. It's inside natural geological features known as breccia pipes. Beginning in the 1950s, the Grand Canyon National Park started uranium mining. It began with Orphan Mine, which is located only 2 miles from Grand Canyon Village. Since then, at least 8 uranium mines have operated within the park. One of them is still active though, and it's called the Canyon Mine. Activists say the uranium pollution from the mine is threatening the springs inside the canyon. So what's the big deal? It's because one of the biggest fringe theories about the Grand Canyon is that it was home to a uranium mining operation in the ancient past. Humans are still mining the uranium today, but there are stories that an ancient race was doing the same thing thousands of years ago. When I say ancient race, I'm talking about aliens. Ancient astronaut theorists believe that aliens have been visiting Earth for thousands of years, and of course, they would have needed these types of resources to be able to support their lifestyle. What better place than the Grand Canyon? And now it's shout-out time! I want to give a big thank you to Irish Bomb Squad and Hemi Roar for supporting this channel. We're so glad that you and your families love our content. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos about amazing discoveries, or dinosaurs, or government conspiracies. We've got it all. The alien doorway. There isn't a lot of proof that an alien race was busy extracting uranium ore from the Grand Canyon, but there is a bit of evidence that does seem to suggest it was happening. Using Google Earth, conspiracy theorists recently discovered the entranceway to what looks like a potential alien base. These guys claim the image of an enormous doorway in a secluded area of the Grand Canyon is irrefutable proof that aliens exist. They say it's proof that aliens built doorways to mysterious underground layers. Maybe it's a doorway to a base, or maybe it's a collapsed uranium mine from 20,000 years ago, when aliens supposedly descended on the Grand Canyon. Nobody knows the truth. And unfortunately, the discovery has been largely ignored since it was announced in 2022. The mysterious doorway was identified 250 miles from Las Vegas. It might sort of look like a natural formation, but the scope and angle of the doorway is far too coincidental to ignore. People have noted how the doorway also looks somewhat Egyptian. It resembles huge archways discovered all across Egypt, up and down the Nile in forgotten cities. So, could the doorway be proof that an alien civilization dominated both Egypt and the area around the Grand Canyon? Could they have been mining uranium in North America while harvesting other materials in Egypt? Let me know what you think in the comments. The City of Giants. The biggest conspiracy involving the Grand Canyon dates back to 1909. You may have heard of the secret Egyptian tunnels hidden within the canyon, but now you're going to hear the whole story, and you can judge for yourself if the government is covering it up. On April 5th, 1909, the Arizona Gazette published an article about a civilization who once lived beneath the Grand Canyon. A man with a thirst for exploration by the name of G.E. Kincaid was rafting down the Colorado River with the massive walls of the canyon looming above him, and that was when he saw something strange. He claimed that he saw a dark entrance high up on the sheer canyon wall. He estimated the entrance to be situated nearly 1,500 feet below the top of the canyon. Naturally, Kincaid went to explore the entrance. It looked like a doorway, so in his mind, it had to lead somewhere. And spoiler alert, it did. The explorer climbed into the dark portal and entered an underground city built by an unknown civilization with advanced engineering skills. They'd carved out a subterranean metropolis using what must have been sophisticated technology. Kincaid claimed that when he reached the center of the city, it was a mammoth chamber with a huge vaulted roof. There were multiple passageways spreading out from its core like the spokes of a wheel. The walls of the chamber were allegedly decorated in copper weaponry. There were strange tablets inscribed with what he thought were hieroglyphic symbols from ancient Egypt. And Kincaid also came across mummified remains of beings that he believed weren't human. The mummies Kincaid found were over 9 feet tall. They were enormous, real giants who were wrapped in thick dark linen. Then, behind the strange mummies, positioned along the walls like dormant guardians, Kincaid found the image of a god. At the end of the Great Hall was an idol sitting cross-legged. This was clearly some sort of godly effigy meant to be worshipped, but Kincaid was shocked because the idol was identical to the Buddha. It looked to him like an enormous Buddha statue with a lotus flower held in each hand. Things continued to get more and more mysterious. He discovered a ceremonial crypt. Kincaid came across a menagerie of artifacts that seemingly originated from all the corners of the globe. It was as if a collector had gathered interesting relics from civilizations through the ages and stored them in a massive vault. It seems like something a group of curious aliens might do. They may have gone from one civilization to another and collected trophies. Then they brought them to a hidden place to put them on display. You're likely thinking that if such a place existed, everyone would know about it. Legend has it that after Kincaid's discovery, he reached out to the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian then sent their own researchers to confirm the discovery. But after the scientists reached the Grand Canyon, the story disappeared. There were supposedly witnesses who saw scientists carrying an obscene number of weird artifacts out of the canyon. The conspiracy these days is that the government knew about the stash of treasure and covered it up on purpose. It's the same reason they've covered up the existence of prehistoric uranium mines. The US government had their scientists extract the artifacts and destroy the entrance to the underground city. But nobody can say why they did it, and nobody can prove they did it either. The pyramids of the canyon. Could there be pyramids and temples in the Grand Canyon? Some eagle-eyed conspiracy theorists have noticed how many of the peaks in the more remote parts of the canyon look like pyramids. They're extremely eroded with zero trace left of any artificial construction, but they are shaped a lot like pyramids. Sure, triangle shapes are common in nature, but then what's the deal with all the weird names in the canyon? It doesn't take a conspiracy theorist to zoom in on Google Earth and read the bizarre names of geological features that can be found in the Grand Canyon. There are places called Tower of Set, Horus Temple, Tower of Ra, Osiris Temple, Isis Temple, etc. The names appear to be a mixture of mythological deities and legendary figures from Egypt and India. But what's even more confusing is that it's not clear who named all these features. There isn't much information that can be found about it. The most obvious candidate, though, is a man named John Wesley Powell. John led the first government-funded expedition to the Grand Canyon prior to the discovery of the underground city by G.E. Kincaid. John's expedition took place in 1869. He was the very first director of the Bureau of Ethnology at the Smithsonian, and he was also one of the original founding members of the National Geographic Society. If John Powell was behind a cover-up, that would mean conspiracy is embedded in both scientific organizations. It could even mean that National Geographic was founded on lies. That's a little bit extra, but you get the point. It's not clear what John found during his expedition. Perhaps he discovered a giant fossilized worm beast, or maybe he found the ruins of an alien temple. There is no way of knowing because it's said most of his notes were lost. All history really says is that John Wesley Powell was a Civil War veteran with one arm. He and 9 other men traveled through the Grand Canyon on wooden boats, and only 6 of them made it out alive. If anyone was naming features in the Grand Canyon in the 19th century, it was likely John. But why would John name so many features after places from the other side of the world? The Haunted Hotel. In 1905, El Tovar Hotel opened in the Grand Canyon, and in the century since then, it's been a place of luxury in the middle of the unforgiving Canyonlands. Hundreds of thousands of visitors have walked the halls of the hotel, but some of them may have never left. It's believed that El Tovar Hotel is home to otherworldly guests, permanent residents from beyond the grave. The haunted hallways make El Tovar Hotel one of the most paranormal places in the Grand Canyon. It's not exactly a government cover-up, but it's more than a little spooky. Both employees and guests alike have reported strange and unexplainable occurrences at the hotel. There used to be a painting whose eyes followed people as they moved past it. Visitors have seen a phantom floating down the front stairs and vanishing. And on the 3rd floor, multiple sightings have been made of a particularly fancy gentleman ghost. A visiting couple from Los Angeles reported the face of an old man with sad eyes and a gray beard staring at them from the black screen of the television in their room. And a man named Mark Griffith was visiting with his wife from New Jersey when an invisible spirit pulled his wife's clothing in the middle of the night. Then there's the mystery of the gravestone. Exiting the front doors of the hotel and moving to the left, you'll see a small garden with desert vegetation. Within the garden is a gravestone with the inscription, Pearl A. Ward, 1879 to 1934. But this is a mystery because nobody knows who Pearl was. Some say he was a cowboy who died while passing through the area. Another local legend is that Pearl was a woman, one of the hostesses who lived and died on the property in the early 20th century. Man or woman, cowboy or hostess, the ghost of Pearl has been seen by many. Visitors and staff have witnessed a figure in a black cape moving down the front stairs of the hotel before disappearing. And sometimes the caped figure can be seen loitering near the mysterious gravestone. Would you dare to visit the haunted hotel? Let me know in the comments. And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe. Legends of the Canyon. The Grand Canyon has been home to many civilizations and cultures through the centuries. There are currently 4 main tribes of Native Americans living in the area of the canyon. There's the Hopi, the Hualapai, the Havasupai, and the Navajo people. But in the past, there were far more. People like the Anasazi who mysteriously vanished in the 13th century. The Spanish were the first Europeans to enter the area in the 16th century as they searched for the legendary 7 cities of Cibola, which have never been found. And each group who called the Grand Canyon home has had their own interesting legends about the place. According to the Hualapai, there was a great flood that occurred in the area at an unknown time in the distant past. A famous hero then carved the channels of the Grand Canyon using a knife and club to get the water back into the ocean. The Navajo legend of the Grand Canyon also has to do with a devastating flood. The Navajo say the flood was so big that it almost killed all their ancestors. They only saved themselves by transforming into fish, later returning into human form when the Grand Canyon was dry. There are other flood myths that involve the Grand Canyon. So many, in fact, that it seems silly to call it a coincidence. Open-minded scholars agree the Native American tribes likely witnessed a biblical-level flood. Only this would have been a long time ago, maybe as far back as 10,000 years. If true, it could be the same flood described in the Bible and in the ancient cuneiform texts of Mesopotamia. That's the same worldwide flood that scientists keep denying ever happened. But here's the really wild part of this whole story. In the Havasupai legend, the flood came after a civil war broke out between 2 opposing gods of the universe, Hokotama and Tochopa. The tale resembles the story from the Bible that talks about Satan and the fallen angels, as well as the flood that drowned all of the horrendous Nephilim. The theory is that there really was a flood in the Grand Canyon. It wiped out every last piece of evidence of the ancient civilization that lived there. The flood was the same one that ruined so many other parts of the world, supposedly let loose by angry gods, or, in many people's opinions, aliens trying to destroy the human race. The UFO cover-up. Everybody knows about the 1947 Roswell incident, the event that occurred in New Mexico in which a flying object crashed and little green men were taken away to a secret government facility. But not everybody knows about the 1953 crash that happened near Kingman in Arizona, not far from the Grand Canyon. Researcher Preston Dennett, the author of a book detailing the history of extraterrestrial encounters in Arizona, said the Kingman crash is the best verified example in history, but it's only one of about 6 tenuously confirmed UFO retrieval events. The incident happened on May 21, 1953. Just 8 miles from the Kingman Airport, a mysterious vehicle crash-landed. A team of government officials and scientists were sent to retrieve the metallic disc, which was said to be about 30 feet wide. Inside the vehicle was either 2 or 4 small humanoids. They were about 4 feet tall and wore metallic suits. The object was taken to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, and then the government swept the whole thing under the rug. So what do you think? Did aliens really crash outside the Grand Canyon? The Moyon Monster. There is a freakish monster allegedly prowling the Grand Canyon. It's been seen by campers and tourists skulking at night along the Mogollon Rim, from which the Moyon Monster gets its name. The strange creature has been described as the Arizona Bigfoot. People report seeing a large and extremely hairy animal at night along the top of the canyon. And those who have gotten close enough say the monster gives off a terribly pungent stench. There isn't much scientific evidence to prove the creature exists, placing it in the same realm as the Loch Ness Monster or the Yeti. But still, many believe the monster is real, even if it does stink like a dead fish or a particularly smelly skunk. It's said to have a muscular build and stands an impressive 10 feet tall. Some even say they have found its massive footprints stomped into the dusty ground. There are even rumors that the Moyon Monster was an escaped creature created by the government. Thanks for watching! Have you ever been to the Grand Canyon? Have you ever seen anything weird? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and come back soon for more videos. See you later. Bye!